On a Thursday morning in March, in a courtroom in downtown Philadelphia, a 22-year-old black college student named Marcus Thompson stood before a judge who had already decided he was guilty. To the prosecutors, to the court officers, to the judge himself, Marcus was just another statistic, another young black man in the system, another case to process and move along. But in less than 45 minutes, a 312-page document would reveal a truth so extraordinary that it would stop the entire courtroom cold. And it would all come down to what people assume. When they look at someone, and what happens when assumptions collide with undeniable evidence. This is a story about the power of documentation, the weight of judgment, and what one person can prove when the world says they're nobody. And it starts with the false accusation. Marcus Thompson had spent his entire life proving people wrong. He grew up in North Philadelphia, in a neighborhood where gunshots were more common than birdsong, where corner stores had bulletproof glass, and where most of his childhood friends had either died young or disappeared into the prison system before their 25th birthday. His mother, Diane Thompson, had raised him and his younger sister, Keisha, alone. Marcus's father had left when Marcus was 4, just walked out one day and never came back. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. Diane worked 2 jobs to keep their small row house. During the day, she cleaned office buildings downtown. At night, she worked as a nursing assistant at a care facility. She'd leave at 5:00 a.m. and often wouldn't return until 10:00 p.m. Sometimes later, Marcus learned early how to be responsible, how to make dinner for himself and Keisha, how to help with homework, how to check the locks twice before bed, how to be the man of the house when he was barely tall enough to reach the stove. But Diane had one unwavering rule: education was everything. Marcus, she'd tell him, exhausted after a double shift, her feet swollen, her body aching, this neighborhood doesn't have to be your destiny. But the only way out is through that. She'd point to his school books. You read, you study, you prove to them that you're not what they expect. You hear me? Yes, ma'am. I didn't leave Mississippi and come up here so you could end up on a corner or in a cell. You're going to college. You're going to be something. Promise me. I promise, Mama. Marcus kept that promise. He was a good student, not naturally gifted. He had to work for every grade, but disciplined, focused. While other kids were playing basketball or getting into trouble, Marcus was in the library. While his friends were cutting class, Marcus was studying. He graduated high school with a 3.7 GPA, got accepted to Temple University with a partial academic scholarship, started studying criminal justice because he wanted to understand the system that had swallowed so many people he knew, wanted to maybe one day be part of fixing it. He was now in his senior year, 3 months from graduation, carrying a 3.85 GPA, working part-time at a community center, and planning to apply to law school. Marcus Thompson was 1 semester away from being the first person in his family to earn a college degree. And then, on a cold February evening, his entire future nearly came crashing down because of something he didn't do. It started on February 14th, Valentine's Day, at the campus corner store near Temple's main campus. It was a small shop that sold snacks, drinks, school supplies, and lottery tickets. Students went there constantly. It was open until midnight and closer than the main convenience stores. At 7 p.m., the store was robbed. A young black man in a dark hoodie, jeans, and a medical mask entered the store, pulled a handgun, and demanded money from the register. The clerk, a Pakistani immigrant named Hassan Malik, complied immediately. He gave the robber $340 from the register. The robber fled. No one was hurt. The entire incident lasted 93 seconds. Hassan called the police. Officers arrived within 6 minutes. They took Hassan's statement, reviewed the security footage, and issued a description. Black male, approximately 6 feet tall, athletic build, early 20s, wearing a dark hoodie with white drawstrings, dark jeans, and white sneakers. It was a description that matched thousands of young black men in Philadelphia, including Marcus Thompson. 3 days later, on February 17th, Marcus was walking to his evening class when 2 police officers approached him near campus. "Excuse me, can we talk to you for a minute?" Marcus stopped. His heart rate immediately spiked. Every black man knows that feeling, the sudden fear that comes with police attention, earned or not. "Yes, officers, what's this about? What's your name?" "Marcus Thompson." "You a student here?" "Yes, sir, senior, criminal justice major." One of the officers, a white man in his 40s named Officer Bradley, looked Marcus up and down. "Where were you on February 14th, around 9:30 p.m.? "February 14th, Marcus thought back. "That was Thursday. I was at the library, studying for a midterm. Can anyone verify that?" "I was alone in a study, Carol. But the library has sign-in records." "Why? What's this about?" "There was a robbery at campus corner store that night. Suspect matches your description." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "I didn't rob anyone. I was studying." "A lot of people say that," the other officer, a black woman named Officer Chen, said. Not unkindly, but with the weariness of someone who'd heard every excuse. "I'm telling you the truth," Marcus said. "Check the library records. I signed in at 7:30 p.m. and didn't leave until after 10:00. Officer Bradley stepped closer. "You mind if we search you? Do I have a choice? You can refuse, but then we'd have to wonder why." Marcus knew how this worked. He'd studied it. Legally, he could refuse. Practically, refusing would make them more suspicious, might escalate the situation, might end with him face down on the pavement or worse. "Fine," he said. "Search me." They did. Found nothing except his phone, wallet, student ID, and textbooks. "All right," Bradley said. "We're going to need you to come to the station to answer some questions." "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet. But we need to talk to you about this robbery." "I want to call my mother first." "You can call from the station." They took Marcus to the 22nd District Police Station, put him in an interrogation room, left him there for 47 minutes. Marcus sat in that room under fluorescent lights at a metal table bolted to the floor and felt the future he'd worked so hard for slipping away. He thought about his mother's face when he'd told her he got into Temple, the pride, the tears, the way she'd hugged him and said, "You did it, baby. You really did it." He thought about Keisha, now a sophomore in high school, who looked up to him, who told her friends, "My brother's gonna be a lawyer." He thought about every hour he'd spent studying when he could have been doing anything else, every sacrifice, every choice to be better, work harder, prove the stereotypes wrong. And now he was sitting in a police interrogation room because someone who looked vaguely like him had robbed a store. When the detectives finally came in, 2 men, one white, one Latino, both looking like they'd done this 10,000 times, Marcus was exhausted and terrified. Marcus Thompson, the white detective whose name tag read Detective Morrison, said as he sat down, "You know why you're here?" Officers said it's about a robbery. "But I didn't do it." Campus Corner Store, February 14th. Ring a bell? I've been to that store before. A lot of students have. But I wasn't there that night. I was studying. Morrison pulled out a photo, a still from the security footage. A young black man in a hoodie, face partially obscured by a mask, holding a gun. This looked like you? Marcus stared at the photo. The person was roughly his height, his build, but the face was mostly hidden. That could be a lot of people, Marcus said. Could it be you? No, because it's not me. I was at the library. Library sign-in records don't prove you stayed there. The Latino detective, whose name tag read Detective Ruiz, interjected. You could have signed in, left, committed the robbery, and come back. But I didn't. Why would I risk everything I've worked for to rob a store for a few $100s? I'm 3 months from graduating. I'm planning to apply to law school. This makes no sense. Morrison leaned back. You'd be surprised what people risk for money, especially when they need it. I don't need it that badly. I work part-time, I have loans, I'm managing. The clerk gave a description. 6 feet, athletic build, early 20s, dark hoodie. That's you. That's also thousands of other people. How many of those other people were in the area that night? I told you, I was at the library. The interrogation continued for another hour. Same questions, different angles. Morrison and Ruiz were good at their jobs. They pushed, implied, suggested that cooperating would go easier for him, that the evidence was strong, that if he just admitted, they could work something out. But Marcus didn't admit anything because there was nothing to admit. Finally, at 11:34 p.m., they let him go. Don't leave town, Morrison said. We're not done with this investigation. Marcus walked out of that police station at midnight, shaking, and called his mother. Mama, something happened. He told her everything. When he finished, there was a long silence. Then Diane Thompson, who'd worked her fingers to the bone to give her son a chance, who'd never missed a parent-teacher conference, who'd sacrificed everything, said the words that would change everything. Marcus, from this moment forward, you document everything. Every single thing. Where you go, what you do, who you see, everything. You write it down, you save it, because they've already decided you're guilty. And the only way you prove them wrong is with evidence they can't ignore. Yes, Mom. I mean it, baby. Everything. Marcus started documenting his life that very night. He created a detailed log. Dates, times, locations, activities. He kept every receipt, every sign-in sheet, every email, every text message. He took photos of himself at various locations with timestamps. He asked friends to verify his whereabouts when they were together. He became obsessive about it, because he understood what his mother understood. In a system that presumed his guilt, only overwhelming proof would save him. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. Marcus continued going to class, working, studying, but he lived with a constant knot in his stomach, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped on March 7th. Marcus was arrested on campus at 2:15 p.m. The same 2 officers, Bradley and Chen, approached him as he was leaving his constitutional law class. Marcus Thompson, you're under arrest for armed robbery. They cuffed him in front of his classmates, read him his rights, walked him past students he knew, professors he'd studied with, friends who stared in shock. The humiliation was crushing. At the police station, Marcus called his mother and then a public defender. The defender, an overworked attorney named David Patterson, who looked like he hadn't slept in a week, met with Marcus for exactly 11 minutes. They have security footage, Patterson said. The clerk ID'd you from a photo lineup. That's enough for charges. The clerk is wrong, Marcus said. I wasn't there. Do you have an alibi? I was at the library studying. Can anyone verify that? I was alone. But I have documentation. I've been keeping detailed records since the police first questioned me. Patterson looked skeptical. What kind of records? Everything. Where I've been, what I've done, receipts, photos, timestamps. I can prove I wasn't at that store. For that night specifically, Marcus's heart sank. He'd started documenting after the police first questioned him, 3 days after the robbery. He didn't have the same level of documentation for the night of February 14th, just the library sign-in sheet. I have the library records, Marcus said, and I can prove a pattern of behavior that shows I wasn't involved. Patterson sighed. Look, Marcus, I have 43 active cases. I'll do my best, but the evidence against you is strong. The DA is offering a plea deal. Plead guilty to robbery, no weapon enhancement, and you'll get 3 to 5 years. With good behavior, you'd be out in 2. I didn't do it. I'm not pleading guilty. See? Then we go to trial. And if you lose, you're looking at 10 to 15 years because of the weapon. Marcus felt sick. This is insane. I didn't rob that store. I believe you believe that. But what matters is what we can prove. Think about the plea deal. I'll be in touch. Patterson left, and Marcus sat in that holding cell, his future collapsing, and understood that belief wasn't enough. Innocence wasn't enough. He needed proof. The arraignment happened the next day. Marcus stood before Judge William Harrington, a 63-year-old white man with 30 years on the bench and a reputation for being tough on crime. Patterson entered a plea of not guilty on Marcus's behalf. The prosecutor, an assistant district attorney named Jennifer Walsh, argued that Marcus was a flight risk and should be held without bail. Your Honor, the defendant is a college student with no significant ties to the community. He has access to resources through the university. Given the serious nature of the charges, armed robbery, we believe he poses a flight risk. Patterson countered weakly. Your Honor, Mr. Thompson is a senior at Temple University, 3 months from graduation. He's maintained a nearly 4.0 GPA. He has no criminal record. He lives with his mother and younger sister. He's not going anywhere. Judge Harrington looked at Marcus with the expression of someone who'd seen 1,000 young men just like him. Mr. Thompson, the judge said, you're accused of armed robbery. That's a serious charge. I'm setting bail at $50,000. Diane Thompson was in the courtroom. Marcus heard her gasp. $50,000 meant they'd need $5,000 for a bail bondsman, money they didn't have. Your Honor, Patterson tried, my client's family has limited means. Then perhaps Mr. Thompson should have thought about that before allegedly robbing a store. At gunpoint, Judge Harrington said coldly, bail is set at $50,000. Next case. Marcus was taken back into custody. He wouldn't see the outside of a jail cell for the next 3 weeks, while his mother desperately tried to scrape together bail money. But something happened during those 3 weeks that Judge Harrington, the prosecutors, and everyone who'd already decided Marcus was guilty didn't anticipate. Marcus didn't give up. From his jail cell, Marcus used his 1 phone call each day to coordinate with his mother. He gave her instructions, told her where to find his documentation, asked her to gather more, to talk to his professors, to get his library records officially, to collect everything. Diane Thompson had cleaned offices her entire adult life. She'd been invisible to the lawyers and executives whose trash she emptied, whose floors she mopped. But she was smart, detail-oriented, and absolutely determined to save her son. She began assembling a record. She got Marcus's academic transcripts, his work schedule from the community center, character reference letters from his professors, sign-in sheets from the library, his detailed personal log of everywhere he'd been since the initial police contact. She organized it all, chronologically, methodically. with tabs and highlights and cross-references. She assembled a 12-page document that told the story of Marcus Thompson's life, not just on February 14th, but every day before and after. A document that painted a picture of who he was, what he did, where he went, how he spent his time. A document that proved, beyond any reasonable doubt, that he was not the person who robbed that store. 3 weeks after his arrest, Diane finally scraped together enough money borrowed from her church, from co-workers, from friends who believed in Marcus to post bail. Marcus came home, but he still faced trial. The trial was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, Marcus tried to return to his life, but everything had changed. Some of his classmates avoided him. Professors looked at him differently. The community center put him on indefinite suspension. His scholarship was in jeopardy. Everywhere Marcus went, he felt the weight of judgment. People had seen him arrested, had read about the charges in the campus newspaper, and most had already decided he was guilty. Once they put that label on you, Marcus told his mother one night, it doesn't matter what the truth is. People see what they want to see. Then we make them see the truth, Diane said. She showed him the 32-page document she'd assembled. This is your life, Marcus. Every detail. Everything that proves you're not what they say you are. Marcus looked through it, saw his entire existence reduced to paper. Dates, times, receipts, photos. Evidence that he'd been a good student, a hard worker, a decent person trying to build a future. You think it'll be enough? He asked. It has to be, Diane said, because it's the truth. But truth, as Marcus was about to learn, isn't always enough when people have already made up their minds. The weeks before trial were a nightmare. Patterson, the public defender, was pessimistic. The clerk's identification was strong. The security footage showed someone of Marcus's build. The prosecution had a narrative that fit. Struggling college student, needs money, commits robbery, gets caught. The fact that Marcus had no criminal record actually worked against him in Patterson's assessment. Prosecutors will say it was your first offense, that you got desperate, that otherwise good people sometimes make bad choices. But I didn't make this choice, Marcus said. I wasn't there. I know, but we need to prove that. And the documentation you have, while impressive, doesn't definitively place you somewhere else at the exact moment of the robbery. So what are you saying? Patterson looked uncomfortable. I'm saying you should seriously consider the plea deal. It's still on the table. Plead to simple robbery, serve 2 years, come out and rebuild your life. With a felony record, no degree, no law school, no future. With your freedom, eventually. Marcus, if we go to trial and lose, you're looking at a decade or more. Marcus thought about that. Thought about taking a plea for something he didn't do. Admitting guilt to satisfy a system that had already judged him. He thought about his mother's face, about Keisha, about everyone who'd believed in him. No, Marcus said. We go to trial. We present the evidence. We make them see the truth. Patterson sighed. Okay, but you need to understand the odds. I've beaten worse odds my whole life, Marcus said. What neither Marcus nor Patterson understood yet was that the truth was about to speak louder than anyone expected, and 31 pages of documentation were about to change everything. The trial began on April 22nd in Courtroom 6B of the Philadelphia County Court. Judge William Harrington presiding. The courtroom was mostly empty. A handful of observers, some students from Temple, Diane, Thompson, and Keisha in the front row, and the typical court personnel. Marcus sat at the defense table in a borrowed suit that didn't quite fit, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Walsh delivered her opening statement with practiced efficiency. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, The evidence in this case is straightforward. On February 14th, the defendant, Marcus Thompson, entered Campus Corner Store at approximately 8:47 p.m. He brandished a weapon, he demanded money, he stole $340, and he fled. This crime was captured on security footage. The store clerk, Hassan Malik, identified Mr. Thompson from a photo lineup. The defense will try to confuse you with character references and documentation, but the facts are simple. Marcus Thompson committed this robbery, and the evidence will prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Walsh was good, confident, clear. She painted Marcus as just another criminal trying to escape justice. Patterson's opening statement was considerably weaker. Members of the jury, Marcus Thompson is innocent. He's a hard-working college student 3 months from graduation. He has no criminal record. He was not at that store on February 14th. The identification is mistaken. The security footage is inconclusive. And we will present evidence that shows Marcus Thompson is not the person who committed this crime. Even to Marcus's ears, it sounded uncertain, defensive. The prosecution presented its case over 2 days. Hassan Malik, the store clerk, testified first. He described the robbery in detail, how terrified he'd been, how the robber had pointed a gun at him, how he'd complied immediately. Then Walsh asked the critical question, "Mr. Malik, do you see the person who robbed you in this courtroom?" Malik looked directly at Marcus. "Yes, that's him." "You're certain?" "I looked right at him. Even with the mask, I could see his eyes, his build. I'm certain." Patterson cross-examined, but gently. "Mr. Malik, you were traumatized during this robbery, correct?" "Yes." "You were scared, very scared, and the robber wore a mask covering most of his face?" "Yes, but I could still see. You could see his eyes and general build." "But you couldn't see his full face?" "No, but, and when you identified Mr. Thompson from a photo lineup, that was 3 days after the robbery, correct?" "Yes." "And by that time, the police had already shown you the security footage multiple times?" "Yes." "So your identification was influenced by what you'd seen in the footage, not just your memory from the robbery itself?" I identified him because he's the one who robbed me. It wasn't enough." The jury looked at Malik with sympathy. He was the victim, and victims' identifications carry weight. Next, the prosecution showed the security footage. It was grainy, shot from a high angle. The robber was indeed wearing a dark hoodie and mask. His height and build matched Marcus's general description, but his face was completely obscured. Walsh argued that the build, height, and clothing matched Marcus's known appearance, that he was in the area, that he had opportunity. Patterson countered that the footage was inconclusive, that it could have been anyone matching that general description. The jury watched the footage multiple times. Marcus could see them looking from the screen to him, making comparisons. Then the prosecution rested its case. It was the defense's turn. Patterson called Marcus to the stand. Marcus told his story, where he was that night, what he'd been doing, his life, his goals, his character. Walsh's cross-examination was brutal. "Mr. Thompson, you claim you were at the library that night?" "Yes, ma'am." "Studying alone?" "Yes." "No witnesses to your presence in the specific study area during the time of the robbery?" "The library has sign-in records, which show you entered at 7:30 p.m. They don't show you were there continuously until Townsend House p.m., do they?" "No, but I was. You could have signed in, left, committed the robbery, and returned, correct?" "I didn't do that." "But you could have." "Objection," Patterson said. "Speculation." "Sustained," Judge Harrington said. "But the damage was done. Walsh had planted doubt. She continued, "Mr. Thompson, you own a dark hoodie, don't you?" "Yes, a lot of people do." "And you're 6 feet tall?" "Yes." "And you're athletic build, I guess?" "And you were in the area that night?" "I was at the library, which is near campus, yes." "So you match the description, you were in the area, and you have no one who can verify your exact whereabouts during the robbery. Isn't that correct?" Marcus felt the walls closing in. "I was at the library." "I didn't rob that store. That's all, Your Honor." Marcus stepped down, feeling defeated. Patterson had told him this would be hard, but he hadn't expected to feel this helpless. Patterson called character witnesses. 3 of Marcus's professors testified about his academic performance, his character, his dedication. But Walsh dismissed them efficiently on cross-examination. "Professor Williams, you've testified that Marcus Thompson is a good student. But good students commit crimes sometimes, don't they?" I suppose it's possible, but..." No further questions. It went on like this for the rest of the day. The defense presented a picture of Marcus as a model student and citizen. The prosecution suggested that good people sometimes make bad choices, especially when they need money. By the end of the second day of defense testimony, Marcus could see the jury wasn't convinced. Some looked sympathetic, others looked skeptical. A few looked like they'd already decided. That night, Marcus sat with his mother in their small row house and tried not to cry. "They're going to convict me," he said. "I can see it on their faces." Diane held her son's hand. "We haven't presented the document yet. Mom, Patterson doesn't think it'll make a difference. It's just a bunch of papers showing I'm generally a good person. It doesn't prove where I was that exact night." "Marcus, listen to me. That document is 312 pages of your life. It's not just character references. It's evidence. It's proof of who you are and what you do. And tomorrow, we make them see it." "How?" "Patterson barely wants to use it." "Then we make him want to," Diane said. Her voice had the same steel Marcus had heard his entire life when she was determined about something. "You tell him that document goes into evidence, or you'll file a complaint about inadequate representation." "Mom, I didn't spend 3 weeks assembling your life story to have some overworked public defender dismiss it. That document is your defense, Marcus, and tomorrow the jury is going to see it." The next morning, Patterson met Marcus before court. He looked even more exhausted than usual. "Look, Marcus, I've been thinking about how to present this documentation you have. It's a lot. I'm not sure the jury will have the patience." "It goes into evidence," Marcus said firmly. "All of it. 312 pages is excessive. The judge will." "Mr. Patterson, my mother assembled that document. It's organized, it's relevant, and it proves who I am. If you won't present it properly, I'll represent myself." Patterson looked at him with surprise. "Marcus, that's not. I'm serious. That document is my life, and the jury needs to see it." Patterson sighed. "Okay, we'll present it. But I'm warning you, Judge Harrington doesn't like theatrics." "This isn't theatrics," Marcus said. "This is evidence." When court reconvened, Patterson approached the bench. "Your Honor, the defense would like to enter into evidence a comprehensive document detailing Mr. Thompson's activities, character, and whereabouts. It's 312 pages and includes..." Judge Harrington's face showed immediate irritation. 312 pages. "Counsel, this court doesn't have time for document dumps. Summarize it." "Your Honor," Patterson said more firmly than Marcus had heard him speak, "this document is critical to the defense. It provides contemporaneous records of Mr. Thompson's activities, including the time period in question. It includes academic records, work schedules, character references, timestamp photographs, receipts, and detailed logs. It directly contradicts the prosecution's narrative. The prosecution's narrative is supported by an eyewitness and video footage, Walsh interjected. This is just a defense attempt to overwhelm the jury with irrelevant character evidence. It's not irrelevant, Patterson said. It's proof that Marcus Thompson is not the person who committed this crime. Judge Harrington rubbed his temples. I'll review it first. Both of you approach with the document. Marcus watched as Patterson carried the thick binder to the judge's bench. Walsh joined him. The three of them stood there, speaking in hushed tones Marcus couldn't hear. Judge Harrington opened the binder, flipped through a few pages. His expression was dismissive at first, the look of someone preparing to reject what he assumed was filler material. But then something changed. He paused on a page, read more carefully, flipped to another section. His expression shifted from irritation to attention. He spent the next 7 minutes reading sections of the document. The courtroom waited in silence. Finally, Judge Harrington closed the binder and looked at Patterson and Walsh. This is comprehensive. Your Honor, it's still just character evidence dressed up, Walsh began. Ms. Walsh, I'll determine what it is, Harrington said. He looked at Patterson. You're asking to enter the entire document? Yes, Your Honor. And you intend to walk the jury through it? We intend to highlight key sections, yes. Harrington was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised everyone. I'll allow it. But counsel, you'll have 1 hour to present this. Not a minute more. Make it count. Thank you, Your Honor. Marcus felt a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. Patterson returned to the defense table. We're up. This is it. What do I do? Marcus asked. You're going to walk the jury through your life, show them who you are, every detail, every receipt, every photo, every piece of evidence that you're not what the prosecution claims. Can you do that? Yes, Marcus said, I can do that. He'd been preparing his entire life for this moment, even if he hadn't known it. Marcus took the stand for the second time. Patterson handed him the 312-page binder. Mr. Thompson, Patterson began, can you tell the jury what this document is? Marcus opened it, saw his life organized into sections, felt the weight of it literal and metaphorical. This is a record, Marcus said. It's a record of who I am, what I do, where I go, and how I spend my time. My mother helped me assemble it after I was first questioned by police, because I knew that people were going to judge me, and I needed to prove who I really am. Why don't you walk us through it? Patterson said. Marcus began. Section 1 is my academic record. Full transcripts from Temple University. I'm a senior majoring in criminal justice with a 385 GPA. I've made Dean's List every semester. Here are my course schedules, my grades, my professor evaluations. He turned pages, showing the jury documentation of every class, every assignment, every exam. Section 2 is my work history. I work part-time at the Marcus Garvey Community Center in North Philadelphia. Here's my employment contract, my work schedule, my time cards. Here are letters from my supervisor and coworkers describing what I do: tutoring kids, running after-school programs, mentoring teenagers. More pages, photos of Marcus with kids at the community center, testimonials from parents. Section 3 is my daily routine. Starting from February 17th, 3 days after the robbery I'm accused of, I documented everything I did, every day, where I went, when I went there, who I was with. Here are receipts from the library printing services, time-stamped. Here are photos I took of myself at various locations with dates and times. Here are text message records, showing conversations I had and when I had them. Marcus continued for 30 minutes. The jury, which had initially looked skeptical, began to pay closer attention. He showed them his library access records, not just for February 14, but for months before and after. A pattern of someone who spent almost every evening studying. He showed them his community center schedule, consistent Tuesday and Thursday evenings, Saturday mornings. Someone with commitments and responsibilities. He showed them character references from professors, co-workers, neighbors, people who'd known him for years and vouched for his character. Section 8, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger, is about February 14th specifically. The night of the robbery, I was at the library from 7:03 p.m. until 1000 p.m. I signed in here. You can see the library log. I was studying for a constitutional law exam. Here's the exam itself, which I took 3 days later. Here's the grade I received, 93%. My professor noted that my essay on Fourth Amendment search and seizure protections showed exceptional understanding of case law and practical application. He paused, looking at the jury. Does that sound like someone who spent that evening robbing a store? Or does it sound like someone who was doing exactly what I said, studying? Walsh objected. Your Honor, the witness is arguing rather than testifying. Sustained. Mr. Thompson, stick to the facts, please. Yes, Your Honor. Marcus continued through the binder. Every page built a picture, not of a criminal, but of a young man working desperately hard to build a better life. This document is 312 pages, Marcus said, nearing the end of his testimony. Because my entire life is in here. Every choice I've made, every hour I've spent trying to be better, every sacrifice my mother made so I could go to college, every time I chose to study instead of party, every time I chose to tutor kids instead of hanging out, every time I chose to be more than what people expected from someone who looks like me and comes from where I come from. His voice cracked slightly. I'm not a criminal. I'm a student. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm someone who's trying to break a cycle. And on February 14th, I was doing exactly what I always do, studying, working toward a future. The same future that's been taken from me because someone who looked kind of like me did something terrible. And this document, he held up the binder, proves it. Every single page, 312 pages of proof that I am not who the prosecution says I am. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Patterson took the binder and approached the jury box. I'd like each of you to look at this. You don't have time to read all 312 pages, but look at some of them. See the details, see the documentation, see the life Marcus Thompson has built and is fighting to protect. He handed the binder to the first juror, a middle-aged black woman who'd been watching Marcus intently. She opened it, began reading. Her expression shifted from skepticism to something else, recognition perhaps, or belief. She passed it to the next juror, and the next. Each person spent several minutes looking through sections. Some flipped through quickly, others read carefully. When the binder reached the last juror, an older white man who'd looked skeptical throughout the trial, he spent a long time reading. He went back to the beginning, read more, looked at Marcus, read again. Finally, he closed the binder and nodded slightly. It was a small gesture, but Marcus saw it. Patterson returned to his seat. No further questions, Your Honor. Walsh stood for cross-examination. She'd been confident throughout the trial, but now she looked uncertain. The 312-page document had changed something in the room. "Mr. Thompson," she began, "this is an impressive document, very thorough, but it doesn't change the fact that you can't prove where you were at the exact moment of the robbery, does it? It proves I was at the library that evening. It proves I have a pattern of being at the library every weeknight. It proves I'm not the kind of person who commits armed robberies. But good people sometimes make bad choices." "I didn't make this choice," Marcus said firmly. "I wasn't there. And that document proves who I am. Someone who spends every available minute studying, working, trying to build something. That's who I am. Not a robber, not a criminal, a student." Walsh tried a few more angles, but her heart wasn't in it. The document had shifted the narrative in a way she couldn't counter with the eyewitness testimony and grainy video footage. Finally, she said, "No further questions." Judge Harrington called for a brief recess before closing arguments. During the recess, Marcus saw something that gave him hope. Several jury members were talking among themselves, gesturing toward the defense table. The older white man who'd read the document carefully was speaking emphatically to two other jurors. "Patterson noticed too. I think we got through to them," he said cautiously. "But we won't know until they deliberate." Closing arguments were brief. Walsh reiterated the eyewitness identification and video footage, but her confidence had diminished. Patterson's closing argument was simple. 312 pages. That's how much evidence Marcus Thompson provided to show you who he is. The prosecution has grainy video footage and a traumatized clerk's identification made days after the crime. Marcus has his entire life documented in detail, proving he's exactly who he says he is, a hard-working student who was not at that store on February 14th. The prosecution wants you to believe that a young man with a 385 GPA, 3 months from graduation, who spends every evening studying and every weekend mentoring kids, suddenly decided to throw it all away to rob a store for $340. Does that make sense? Or does it make more sense that the clerk, traumatized and scared, made a mistake? That the police, under pressure to solve the case, arrested someone who matched a general description? That the system failed Marcus Thompson? You have 312 pages of evidence in front of you. Read it, consider it, and ask yourselves, does Marcus Thompson seem like the person who committed this crime? Or does he seem like exactly who he says he is, an innocent man fighting for his life? The jury began deliberations at 3:07 p.m. Marcus, his mother, and Keisha waited in the hallway. Every minute felt like an hour. Patterson warned them that the longer the jury deliberated, the more contentious the discussion, which could be good or bad. At 5:23 p.m., the jury sent a note to the judge. They had a question. Everyone returned to the courtroom. Judge Harrington read the note and looked up. The jury is asking if they can see the defendant's document again, specifically the sections relating to his academic record and February 14th timeline. Walsh looked concerned. That meant at least some jurors were taking the documentation seriously. "Provide them with the document," Harrington ordered. The jury deliberated for another 2 hours. At 7:31 p.m., they sent another note. They'd reached a verdict. Marcus's hand shook as everyone reassembled in the courtroom. His mother grabbed his hand and squeezed. Keisha was crying. The jury filed back in. Marcus tried to read their faces but couldn't. Judge Harrington addressed the foreperson, the middle-aged black woman who'd been the first to read the document. "Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor. What say you?" The foreperson looked at Marcus. Her eyes were kind. "On the charge of armed robbery, we find the defendant, Marcus Thompson, not guilty." The courtroom erupted. Diane Thompson burst into tears. Keisha screamed with joy. Marcus felt his legs nearly give out. "Order!" Judge Harrington banged his gavel, but even he looked affected by the verdict. The foreperson continued. "Your Honor, if I may, the jury would like to make a statement." Harrington looked surprised. "That's unusual, but proceed." "Your Honor, we found Mr. Thompson not guilty because the evidence presented by the defense, specifically the 312-page document, painted a picture that completely contradicted the prosecution's narrative. While the eyewitness testimony and video footage initially seemed compelling, the detailed documentation of Mr. Thompson's life, character, and activities made it clear to us that there was reasonable doubt. More than reasonable doubt. We believe the wrong person was arrested." She looked at Marcus. "We also want to say that it's a shame, Mr. Say. Thompson had to prove his innocence so thoroughly that he had to document every moment of his life because he knew he wouldn't be believed otherwise. That says something about our system that this jury finds troubling." Several other jurors nodded in agreement. Judge Harrington was quiet for a moment. Then he said something unusual. "Mr. Thompson, please stand." Marcus stood, his heart pounding. "This court finds you not guilty as determined by the jury. You're free to go." Harrington paused. "I've been on this bench for 30 years. I've seen thousands of cases. And I have to say, I've never seen a defendant present such comprehensive documentation of their innocence. That 312-page document was remarkable, not just in its thoroughness, but in what it represented. A young man determined to prove his worth in a system that had already judged him." Harrington looked at Walsh. "Walsh, I'm recommending that the DA's office review its investigation procedures in this case. An innocent man was arrested, charged, and tried based on an eyewitness identification that was clearly mistaken and video footage that was inconclusive. Mr. Think, Thompson spent 3 weeks in jail and endured months of this ordeal. That's not justice." Walsh looked uncomfortable but nodded. Harrington turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, I apologize on behalf of this court for what you've endured. I hope you're able to complete your degree and pursue your goals. Based on what I've seen in that document, you're going to make an excellent attorney someday." Marcus could barely speak. "Thank you, Your Honor." The gavel came down. Court is adjourned. Marcus collapsed into his mother's arms. They held each other and cried. Tears of relief, exhaustion, joy, and residual trauma from the nightmare they'd endured. Patterson approached them. "Marcus, that was. I've never seen anything like that. The way you presented your life, the documentation, it completely changed the jury's perception." "Thank you for believing in me," Marcus said. "Thank you for not giving up," Patterson replied. As Marcus left the courthouse that night, a free man, several of the jurors approached him. The older white man who'd read the document so carefully shook Marcus's hand. "Son, I owe you an apology. When I first saw you, I'll admit, I had doubts. I'm ashamed of that now. But that document, it showed me who you really are. And it made me realize how easy it is to judge someone based on appearances. Thank you for teaching me that lesson." Another juror, a young Asian woman, said, "Marcus, what you did, documenting everything, that was brilliant. But it's also heartbreaking that you felt you had to. I'm so sorry you went through this." One by one, several jurors expressed similar sentiments. They'd come to the trial with assumptions. The 312-page document had challenged those assumptions and revealed the truth. That night, Marcus sat in his childhood bedroom, looking at the 312-page binder that had saved his life. His mother had made copies, one for him, one for their records, one for Patterson. "Mama," Marcus said, "why did you think to do this? To document everything?" Diane looked at her son with eyes that had seen too much hardship but never lost hope. "Baby, I've been invisible my whole life. I clean offices where people don't even see me. They walk past me like I'm furniture. And I've watched you grow up in a world that's already decided what you are before you open your mouth. I knew the moment those police first questioned you that you'd have to prove yourself in ways other people never do. So I documented your life, because if the system won't see you, we'll make them see you." 312 pages worth. Marcus hugged his mother. "You saved me." "No, baby, you saved yourself by being exactly who you are, by living a life worth documenting." The aftermath of Marcus's trial rippled through Philadelphia in unexpected ways. The case caught the attention of local media. The story of the 312-page document became a symbol of what many people, particularly people of color, felt they had to do to prove their innocence in a system that presumed their guilt. The Philadelphia Inquirer ran a feature article, "The 312-page defense: How One Student Documented His Life to Prove His Innocence." Civil rights organizations reached out to Marcus. They wanted to use his case as an example of problems with eyewitness identification procedures and racial bias in the criminal justice system. Temple University, which had suspended Marcus's scholarship during the trial, not only reinstated it, but issued a public apology. The university president met personally with Marcus and his mother. "Mr. Thompson, we failed you. We should have stood by you. We should have provided support. Instead, we presumed guilt. That was wrong, and we're implementing new policies to ensure we never treat another student this way." The real robber, as it turned out, was caught 3 months later. He'd committed 2 more robberies using the same method. When arrested, he confessed to the campus corner store robbery. He looked nothing like Marcus except for general height and build. But by then, Marcus had already been acquitted. Hassan Malik, the store clerk who'd identified Marcus, was devastated when he learned the truth. He reached out through an attorney and asked to meet Marcus. Marcus agreed. They met at a coffee shop near campus. Malik was in tears. "Mr. Thompson, I am so sorry. I was so certain it was you. I looked at the lineup, I saw your photo, and I was certain. But I was wrong. I nearly destroyed your life because I was wrong." Marcus looked at the man who'd almost cost him everything. He felt anger, yes, but also understanding. "Mr. Malik, you were the victim of a crime. You were traumatized. The police showed you my photo, and your brain, trying to make sense of what happened, convinced you I was the person. That's not your fault. That's how human memory works, especially under trauma. But I should have been more careful. I should have." "You did what you thought was right," Marcus said. "The system failed both of us. You deserve to have your robber caught. I deserve not to be arrested without proper investigation. We're both victims of a system that took shortcuts instead of doing the hard work of actual justice." Malik wiped his eyes. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," Marcus said honestly, "but I'm giving it anyway, because holding on to anger won't change what happened, and because I understand that you didn't do this maliciously. You made a mistake that the system amplified." They talked for over an hour. It didn't erase what Marcus had endured, but it provided some closure. Marcus graduated from Temple University 6 weeks after his acquittal. He walked across that stage in his cap and gown, and when his name was called, Marcus Thompson, Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice, summa cum laude, the entire auditorium erupted in applause. His mother and sister were in the front row, crying and cheering. Several of his professors stood and applauded. Even people who didn't know him personally joined in. His story had spread through campus, and he'd become a symbol of resilience. At the graduation reception, the Dean of the School of Criminal Justice approached Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, I've been following your case closely. What you endured is exactly why we need people like you in this field. People who understand the system's flaws because they've experienced them. I'd like to offer you a research assistant position while you prepare your law school applications. We're conducting a study on eyewitness identification procedures and criminal justice reform. Your perspective would be invaluable." Marcus accepted. He spent the next year working on the research project, applying to law schools, and speaking at criminal justice reform events. His story and the 312-page document became a case study in multiple universities. Law professors used it to teach about the burden of proof, the presumption of innocence, and the reality that some defendants have to work much harder to prove their innocence than others. Marcus applied to 15 law schools. He was accepted to 12, including several top-tier programs. He chose Howard University School of Law, a historically black institution with a legacy of training civil rights attorneys. "I want to learn from people who understand what it means to fight for justice when the system is stacked against you," Marcus explained to his mother. 3 years later, Marcus Thompson graduated from Howard Law. He passed the Pennsylvania bar exam on his first attempt, and he joined a civil rights law firm that specialized in wrongful conviction cases and criminal justice reform. His first case as an attorney, representing a young Latino man who'd been falsely accused of assault based on a mistaken eyewitness identification. Marcus showed up to that first court appearance carrying a lesson he'd learned from his own experience. Documentation matters, truth matters, and everyone deserves someone who'll fight for them when the system presumes their guilt. 5 years after his acquittal, Marcus stood before a state legislative committee considering reforms to eyewitness identification procedures. He testified about his experience, about the 12-page document, about what it took to prove his innocence. "Legislators, I'm here today not just as an attorney, but as someone who lived through a failure of justice. I was arrested, charged, and tried for a crime I didn't commit. An eyewitness misidentified me. Police arrested me based on a general description. Prosecutors charged me despite having no physical evidence. And I came within a jury deliberation of losing my entire future. I was lucky. Lucky that my mother had the foresight to document my life. Lucky that my public defender, overworked as he was, allowed that evidence to be presented. Lucky that the jury took the time to actually consider it. But luck shouldn't be required for justice. The reforms you're considering: double-blind lineup procedures, better training on the fallibility of eyewitness memory, requirements for corroborating evidence. These aren't radical ideas. They're basic safeguards that should have protected me and protect countless others who aren't as lucky as I was. I had to prove my innocence with 312 pages of documentation. Most people can't do that. Most people don't have the resources, the education, the support system I had, and they end up in prison for crimes they didn't commit. Please pass these reforms. Make it so the next Marcus Thompson doesn't have to spend Months of his life documenting every moment just to prove he's not a criminal. Make it so the system does its job properly from the start. The reforms passed unanimously. 10 years after his acquittal, Marcus Thompson was a partner at his law firm. He'd handled 43 wrongful conviction cases. He'd helped exonerate 17 innocent people. He'd trained prosecutors on proper identification procedures. He testified before Congress on criminal justice reform. And he still carried a copy of the 312-page document that had saved his life. Not in his briefcase, but in his mind. A reminder of how close he'd come to losing everything and how. Documentation, evidence, and truth had set him free. He thought often about that day in court, about the moment the jury foreperson read the verdict, about Judge Harrington's unusual apology, about the jurors who'd approached him afterward. But mostly, he thought about his mother, about Diane Thompson, who cleaned office buildings for a living, but had the wisdom and determination to document her son's life so thoroughly that no one could deny the truth. Marcus had framed one page from the original document, the title page his mother had created. It hung in his office at the law firm. It read simply, "The Life of Marcus Thompson, a record of character, commitment, and truth." 12 pages. Compiled by Diane Thompson, March 2024. Below it, Marcus had added a placard with a quote he lived by: "Documentation is dignity. When the world refuses to see you, make them read you." Every client who entered his office saw that framed page, and many of them asked about it. Marcus would tell them the story about the 2-hour wait in a jail cell, about the assumption of guilt, about the system that nearly destroyed him, and about the 312 pages that proved the truth. "That document saved my life," Marcus would tell them. "And now, it's my job to help you tell your story, to document your truth, to make the system see you. Because everyone deserves what I got, a chance to prove who they really are." Marcus Thompson didn't become famous, didn't become a celebrity attorney, didn't win a massive settlement or get a movie made about his life. He got something better. He got justice. He got vindication. He got the opportunity to turn his trauma into purpose. He got to wake up every morning and help people who were where he'd been, presumed guilty, fighting for their lives, desperate for someone to see the truth. And he got to honor his mother. Every case he won, every person he helped, every reform he advocated for, all of it was a tribute to the woman who'd spent 3 weeks documenting her son's life, because she understood that in a world that refuses to see you, sometimes you have to make them read you. Diane Thompson never sought recognition for what she did. She continued cleaning offices, working her 2 jobs, living her modest life. But she attended every one of Marcus's court victories, sat in the gallery and watched her son, her baby who she'd raised alone, who she'd sacrificed everything for, stand before judges and juries and fight for justice. And every time Marcus won a case, he'd find his mother in the courtroom and mouth 2 words: "Thank you." Because Marcus understood something that Judge Harrington, the prosecutors, the police, and everyone who'd presumed his guilt never would. Dignity isn't given. It's documented, it's lived, it's proven. 1 page at a time, 1 choice at a time, 1 truth at a time. Until you have 312 pages of proof that you are exactly who you say you are, and no one can take that away. This story reminds us that we live in a world where some people have to prove their worth, their innocence, their humanity in ways that others never will, where a young black man can be arrested, charged, and tried based on a mistaken identification and general appearance, where the presumption of innocence exists in theory but not always in practice. Marcus Thompson's 312-page document was extraordinary, but it was also tragic. Tragic that it was necessary. Tragic that he had to document every moment of his life to prove he wasn't a criminal. Tragic that his mother had to spend weeks compiling evidence of her son's character, because she knew the system wouldn't believe him otherwise. And yet within that tragedy, there's also power. The power of truth, the power of documentation, the power of refusing to accept judgment without evidence. Marcus Thompson could have taken the plea deal, could have served 2 years for a crime he didn't commit, could have emerged with a felony record, no degree, no future, but at least with his freedom. Instead, he chose to fight, to prove, to document, to force the system to see him. And that choice, that refusal to accept injustice as inevitable, changed not just his life, but the lives of everyone who came after him. The reforms that passed because of his testimony have protected hundreds of defendants from wrongful conviction. The cases he's won have freed 17 innocent people. The students he's mentored have gone on to become attorneys, judges, advocates. Marcus Thompson's 312 pages created ripples that continue to spread. So here's the question this story leaves you with. What assumptions do you make about people based on their appearance, their background, their circumstances? Do you give everyone the presumption of innocence? Or do you, like that jury initially did, see what you expect to see? And if you were Marcus Thompson, facing a system that had already decided you were guilty, knowing that your freedom, your future, your entire life depended on proving something you shouldn't have to prove, would you have the strength to document your innocence, the discipline to record every detail, the faith that truth would ultimately prevail? Because the reality is this: Marcus Thompson was extraordinary in his response to injustice, but he shouldn't have had to be. The system should have worked the way it's supposed to, innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Instead, Marcus had to prove his innocence beyond any doubt, had to present 312 pages of his life, had to turn his existence into evidence. And while his story ended in acquittal, how many others don't? How many people who don't have a Diane Thompson to help them, who don't have the education to know what to document, who don't have the resources to compile evidence, who don't get a public defender willing to present it, who don't get a jury willing to read it? Those people are still out there, still presumed guilty, still fighting battles they shouldn't have to fight. Marcus Thompson's victory was his own. But his mission, the work he does every day, is to ensure that others don't have to fight as hard as he did for justice. That's the legacy of the 312-page document. Not just that it saved one innocent man, but that it exposed a system that makes innocent people prove their innocence. And that exposure is the first step toward change. Choose to be someone who sees people for who they are, not who you assume them to be. Choose to demand better from a system that's supposed to protect the innocent, not presume their guilt. Choose to believe that everyone deserves what Marcus Thompson had to fight for, the right to be seen as innocent until proven otherwise. Because someday, you might be the one sitting in that courtroom hoping someone took the time to see the truth. This story is a fictional dramatization inspired by real events of wrongful accusation, systemic bias, and the power of documentation. While the characters and specific circumstances are creative works, the themes, racial bias in criminal justice, the fallibility of eyewitness testimony, and the extraordinary burden some defendants face to prove their innocence, reflect realities that play out in courtrooms across this country every day. In a world where some people have to prove they're innocent while others are presumed so, choose to be like Diane Thompson. Choose to see, choose to document, choose to believe that truth, when given voice, can change everything. Choose justice.